John chapter 10. We found out that he is bread. He is light. John chapter 10, verse 9 says, I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and go in and out and find pasture. If I had to tag this text, I would tag it, I'll take that door. I'll take that door. In order to appreciate the text tonight, I've got to inform you that this is one of the most misunderstood teachings of Jesus, because people often miss the text that's inside the context. Context starts in chapter 9, just after Jesus had healed a man that was blind from the point of birth. There's some confusion going on because the Pharisees say that he has sinned, which is the reason why he is blind. They even went as far as saying his mother or his father had sinned because he had been blind from birth. But rather than rejoicing with the man because Jesus has restored his sight, the Pharisees condemn him and want to cast him away because they say there's no way that a man can receive his sight after being blind from birth. Pharisees excommunicate with him. They begin to question him and interrogate him, and they wanted to know, how is it that a man blind from birth is now able to see? The man stands and looks at the Pharisees. He said, listen, I don't know all these questions you're asking me, but there's one thing I do know. A man by the name of Jesus touched my eyes, and once I was blind, now I see. Whatever you want to ask me, the man named Jesus is literally responsible for the condition that I am now in. Jesus continues on with this confrontation with the Pharisees because they want to know, how is it that a man by the name of Jesus can heal somebody? They believe that they believed in this healing, but they did not believe in the man that gave the healing. Y'all come on, talk back to me in here. They believed that it could be done, but they did not believe that Jesus was able to get it done. And my question tonight becomes is, how many times have we missed Jesus inside of our miracle? We believe it can be done, but we don't believe that he can do it. Somebody come on, talk back. So it causes a constant confrontation because we have this Pharisee mentality that we love the benefits, we love the praises of the miracle, but we have trouble believing in the source of the miracle. And here Jesus begins to teach them around chapter number 10, because they were trying to figure out what is the real way into salvation. Jesus says, listen here, he uses a very simple metaphor here, something that everyone in that time would be able to understand. He uses the analogy of a shepherd and his sheep. See, y'all talk back to me tonight. He uses something that is very common to their vocabulary, something that they are known for doing and operating in every day. And he talks about the context of a shepherd working with his sheep. Jesus opens up this text, and in this day the sheep were kept two types of ways. The first way the sheep were kept, they were kept in cities and in villages. Usually there was a large corral inside the city walls where the shepherd would bring in the flock of sheep to secure them for the night. It was a public pen, able to hold the flocks, and they would be able to be cared for by the shepherd until the morning. They would keep them in the city. But the second way that the shepherd would keep the sheep, he would keep them in the pasture, in the country land. A shepherd would herd all his sheep in a low-walled enclosure area. And watch this. He would build a pile of rocks up and build a wall around the sheep, but there was no gate. And so what the shepherd would do is, in order to protect the sheep at night, he would lay across the gate. Y'all talk back to me. The shepherd would lay across the entrance of the corral in order to protect the sheep from the enemy. Now, y'all talk back to me tonight. Ain't that something that God would do for his children? That even when there's a way for the enemy will get in, that God would lay in the doorway and protect his children from trouble. I wish I had a praying church in here. So Jesus uses this analogy to say, listen, even though we're corralled as sheep, and even though there are some times that we may not have a physical gate to go in and out of, church, you don't have to worry, because I am the door. I wish I had somebody here. One translation says, he says, I am the gate. In other words, if you want to get inside of the sheepfold, which is inside of the Jesus-built corral, you're going to have to come through me. And I came to tell somebody tonight that if you want to come to Jesus, if you want to get to God, if you want to get to the blessings of God, you're going to have to come through Jesus Christ. And Jesus begins to talk about this door. Well, actually, I read verse 9, but he actually starts around verse number 7. Because if you read verse number 7, he says, then Jesus said unto them, verily I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. I am the door of the sheep. Then he says, and all that ever come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. What Jesus was saying here is that the people, the sheep, were being corralled, but they were being tricked into being corralled. Y'all ain't saying nothing tonight. The thieves and the robbers will put up makeshift corrals, and they would do all kind of false teachings in order to trap the sheep in that corral. Don't that sound like the church today? We got a lot of false prophets out here that talk about this prosperity gospel, and we've quit preaching Jesus. But how many in this house can say that Jesus is still the way? As a matter of fact, that's how I came to be where I am. Because one day, a long time ago, I came to Jesus just as I was. I wish I had somebody here. He said, listen. Those that came before me are false teachers. And watch this, they'll say any and everything to corral the sheep. Can I dig a little bit deeper in my little time? You got to understand something about sheep. Sheep are not the most intelligent creatures in the world. If I could just dig a little bit deeper, some would say that sheep are rather dumb because they have the tendency to follow the first noise that they hear. Anything that sounds like a shepherd, I wish I had somebody in here. And that's why we got a whole lot of folk jump in churches, because we'll hear something that sounds good and we'll follow whatever sounds good. But when you got a pastor that's preaching Jesus, I don't want to hear none of that. And Jesus said they're false teachers, and the sheep did not hear them. But watch this. In verse 9, he says, I am the door. And Dr. Nichols, I came all the way from Texas by way of Arkansas to share 3 things that I saw tonight in the text. The first thing I saw, number 1, I saw the benefactor at the door. Because watch this, Jesus makes a promise that's a lot like a life insurance policy. When you have a life insurance policy, first of all, you have the benefactor. Secondly, you have the beneficiaries. And then thirdly, you have the benefits. Can I talk about the door as an insurance policy? The first thing I see the benefactor at the door. Jesus makes a bold statement. He does not go out and say that Elijah is the door. He does not say that Moses is the door. He does not say that Abraham is the door. He makes a bold, selfish declaration, and he declares, I am the door. Oh, would the church please shout when you find out who Jesus is. Is there anybody who can say, I'm blessed? But when Jesus says, I am the bread of life. I'll never go hungry. I am the light of the world. I'll never walk in darkness. And then he says, I am the door, which means I can go through him in order to get to where I'm trying to go. He says, I am the door. The benefactor here is the owner of the door. When you deal in insurance, the benefactor is the one that puts the policy into place. Y'all ain't saying nothing in here. The benefactor is the one that signs the documents to put the insurance policy in place. Back in Texarkana, Texas, I left a wife that's terminally ill with chronic kidney failure. Watch this. A few months ago, she sat me down and she said, baby, I want to let you know that I took out a life insurance policy because I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I said, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I don't want to hear nothing about that. She said, no, you need to hear this because if something happens to me, I got to make sure that you and my daughter Zion will be well taken care of. She sat me down and showed me the forms. At the top of the list was her name, that the policy was in her name, which says she was the benefactor. The beneficiaries were myself and our daughter. And then we lined out the benefits that in the worst case scenario that something should happen to my wife, these things will take place. My daughter get a piece of money, I'll get a piece of money, and we'll be able to keep on living. But I didn't want to hear that. But God spoke to me. He says, you need to pay attention because the same policy that she put on you and your daughter, I put it on your life a long time ago. You need to understand that I signed the papers. I am the benefactor. You are the beneficiaries. When you're hungry, I'll feed you. When you're thirsty, I'll give you drink. When you're lost, I'll find you. When you're blind, I'll help you see. When you're down, I'll pick you up. Do I have any beneficiaries in here tonight that say, I am a part of the plan? He says, I am the benefactor. Jesus is saying that he is the door. Watch this. No one gets into God's flock without first going through him. See, we got all these schemes and tactics to get to God, but you got to understand the only way that you're going to get to God is you got to go through Jesus. See, I pastor country folks back in Texarkana, and they have this thing called, you got to go through a 6-month class. You got to go through this rituals and all this type of stuff. But Jesus said, I am the door. If you want the blessings of God, you got to come through me. But not only do I see the benefactor at the door, but watch this, I see the beneficiaries of the door. Watch the text. It's all in verse 9. It's all in verse 9. Who gets to come through the door? The text says, any man. Oh, I wish I had some Bible readers in here. Verse 9, if I'm not going blind, it says, by me, if any man enter in. In other words, Jesus offers the door to any man willing to come in the right way. Oh. So you got these folk that want to come through the back door, jump over the fence. But Jesus says, it's welcome to anybody, but you got to be willing to come in the right way. And I like this phrase, any man. That literally means that no matter how jacked up you are, no matter how torn you are, no matter how down you are, if any man desires to come to God and come through Jesus Christ, the text says you can get in the door. And I know I got a few smart folk in here that say, well, Pastor Trotter, can God really let somebody in like me? You don't know my life story. I have not always lived like I've been living. I used to live foul. I used to live jacked up. Well, I'm glad you asked me that, because I came all the way from Clear Lake to tell you that I brought a Bible full of witnesses that'll tell you any man can get in. The Bible tells us that Noah was a drunk, Abraham was old, Isaac was a daydreamer, Jacob was a liar, Joseph was abused, Moses couldn't talk right, Gideon was a scaredy cat. Rahab was a hooker. Timothy was too young. Jeremiah was too scared. David was an adulterer. Elijah was suicidal. Job went bankrupt. John ate bugs. Peter denied Christ. And if you need a living witness, I've lied, cheated, backbit, backstabbed. I've hooked and crooked. I refuse to go, refuse to come. I've been jealous, envious, but I came to tell you that Jesus picked me up and turned me all around. I wish I had about 10 or 12 of y'all to say, I'm glad I'm a beneficiary. Okay. All right, I'm done. Number 3. First you got the benefactor. You got the benefactor at the door. You got the benefactor at the door. You have the beneficiaries of the door. But here's your shout. Don't miss it. Here's your shout. Number 3, you have the benefits inside the door. Let me see. You got the benefactor of the door. You've got the beneficiaries of the door. But then you have the benefits inside the door. Watch the end of verse 9. Jesus says that if you come in the right way, if you come in through me, then you'll be able to go in and go out and find pastors. Oh, the promise of pastors. In this word pastor, listen, you find, the text teaches us that you're going to find rest. Come here, David. David would tell you, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. How do you find rest? He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. I wish I had somebody here that say, I found a benefit of rest inside the door. I once was lost in sin, but Jesus took me in. Then a light from heaven filled my soul. It bathed my heart with love and wrote me. Is there anybody here that can say, I found rest inside the door? Well, not only do you find rest inside the door, but you also find refreshment inside the door. In Jesus, the saint of God finds all that his heart desires. Is there anybody in here tonight that can say, I found refreshment when I went in the door? Listen, somebody said, I was tired and I was weary, but when I came to Jesus, I found some refreshment and he gave me everything I need. Not only that, but I found rejoicing. The Bible tells us that Jesus promises us with the fullness of joy. Is there anybody in here got a reason to rejoice tonight? Because you have rejoicing in Jesus. Yeah, I picked this door not only because I have rest, not only because I have rejoicing, not only because I have refreshment, but finally I picked this door because I have plenty. Is there anybody in here know that God got everything you need? Whatever you desire, the Lord has it in the palm of his hand. Is there anybody here that know that God has everything you need? If you need joy, it's inside the door. If you need